Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're doing something really exciting. We're taking a complete journey from being a Next.js Hero to a full-on scalable deployment hero. Whether you're literally just starting out with this framework or you've kind of been dabbling and want to truly master it for production, we're going to break down every single detail. Our goal here is to make everything incredibly simple and easy to digest. We're covering it all, from the absolute basics all the way to advanced architecture and finally getting your app live on the web. Let's get into it.
Okay, so here is our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with the Next.js advantage, dive into the modern app router and server components, demystify data fetching, figure out how to architect for massive scale, and wrap up with a showdown between Vercel and Docker for deployment.
All right, Chapter 1, the Next.js advantage. Let's set the stage here and figure out why so many developers and massive tech companies are making the leap to Next.js in the first place. So the crucial difference really comes down to architecture. Think about standard React for a second. React is absolutely fantastic, right? It's an incredible library for building user interfaces, but it is just a view layer. To build a real production-ready application with just React, you kind of have to duct tape a bunch of third-party tools together just to handle routing or data fetching or backend integration. Next.js, on the other hand, is a full-stack framework built right on top of React. It literally gives you all those missing superpowers straight out of the box. You get built-in, highly optimized solutions for everything you need without the headache of piecing it all together yourself.
And you know, these built-in features, they're an absolute game changer. I mean, have you ever lost a user because a page just took way too long to load? Yeah, Next.js fixes that. Because it handles server-side rendering so beautifully, it is incredible for SEO. Search engines can actually read your content instantly. Plus, it includes out-of-the-box optimizations for things like images, fonts, and scripts, so your core web vitals and overall performance are going to be blazing fast. Throw in an intuitive file-based routing system, full compatibility with the React code you already know, and a massive support community, it's a no-brainer.
Moving right along to Section 2, let's check out our magic weapons for this journey: the modern app router and the totally revolutionary React server components.
This perfectly captures the evolution of Next.js. So if you've ever watched older tutorials, you probably saw the pages router. That was the old standard. It lived in the pages/directory, and it honestly sent a lot of JavaScript down to the client. But if you're building an app today, looking toward that 2026 standard, the app router is your new best friend. It lives in the app/directory. It allows for incredibly complex nested layouts without forcing the whole page to re-render, and most importantly, it defaults to server components.
Okay, so let's actually talk about what React Server Components, or RSCs, are, because this shift is huge. In the app router, every component you create is a server component by default. That means they render exclusively on your server. All that heavy lifting, like querying your database directly or reading local files, stays safely and securely on the back end. And the massive benefit here? Zero JavaScript is sent to the browser for these components. None. Your bundle size drops drastically, which means incredibly fast load times. Now, if you do need interactivity, say a button click or using a React hook, you just pop a little use client directive right at the top of that specific file. Simple as that.
I absolutely love thinking about this like a restaurant, right? The server is your kitchen. It does all the chopping, the cooking, the messy prep work, creating what we call the RSC payload. The browser, well, that's simply the table where the diner sits. You don't need to see the kitchen appliances or do the cooking yourself to enjoy the food. You just seamlessly receive this finished, beautifully presented meal. It's the exact same concept here. Your browser doesn't have to do the heavy rendering work, which frankly saves battery life and processing power on the user's device.
All right, so having mastered the component architecture, we now face the trials of data fetching. I know, this is notoriously one of the most confusing parts of the whole web dev journey, but don't worry, we're going to make it really simple.
Let's break down these 4 acronyms once and for all so you never feel overwhelmed by them again. Each strategy basically just dictates exactly when and where your data gets transformed into a user interface. First, we have CSR, or client-side rendering. This happens right in the browser after the initial page loads. It's perfect for highly interactive, private things like user dashboards. Next up is SSR, server-side rendering. This actually generates the HTML on the server for every single request. So if you have highly dynamic, personalized data like a real-time newsfeed, this is your go-to. Then we've got SSG, static site generation. This builds the HTML just once during the build process. It is insanely fast and absolutely perfect for static blogs or marketing pages. And finally, ISR. incremental static regeneration. This one's a really clever hybrid. It serves static pages, but rebuilds them in the background at specific intervals. It's totally perfect for things like e-commerce product catalogs, where the data changes occasionally, but still needs to load instantly. And you know what the best part is? Next.js intelligently chooses the best method for you based simply on how you write your fetch functions.
And this whole data fetching thing ties directly into how Next.js actually delivers the page to the user. The step-by-step lifecycle here shows off a feature called streaming. Because we're using server components, when a browser requests a route, the server can instantly start sending chunks of HTML down the wire. So instead of your users staring at a blank white screen while some slow API request finishes up, they get the layout, the header, and the sidebar immediately. Then the actual data just pops in exactly when it's ready. It's such a better user experience.
Okay, moving into Section 4. As we evolve from novice to pro, we really need to learn how to architect our code base so it doesn't just collapse under the weight of its own success.
I absolutely love this quote from developer Melvin Prince. Scalability isn't something you add later, it's something you build into your Next.js app from the start. This mindset is crucial. Scalability isn't just some band-aid you slap on when your app suddenly goes viral. It is the foundation you have to lay on day one. If you just dump all your files into one giant folder, you are setting yourself up for a seriously painful refactoring process down the line when your team starts to grow.
So to avoid that nightmare, here is a highly recommended scalable folder structure. Notice how the app directory is kept incredibly lean. It is strictly used for defining your routes, your pages, and your layouts. All the actual building blocks live completely outside of it. You separate your generic UI blocks, things like standard buttons and text inputs, into a component/UI folder completely away from domain-specific features. Then, we set up dedicated folders for utility functions, custom hooks, and global state management stuff like ZooStand or Redux. By meticulously separating these concerns right from the start, you empower literally any new developer joining your team to navigate your project instantly and confidently.
All right, we have built an incredible, scalable application. Now we've finally reached the final boss of our journey, pushing this Next.js application into production for the whole world to see.
When it comes down to it, you generally have two main paths here. First up is Vercel. Now, Vercel is the company that actually created Next.js, so naturally their platform is the seamless, easy mode. It is zero configuration. You basically just push your code to GitHub and boom, it's live globally. Super easy. But at scale, Vercel's serverless function limits can get pretty expensive. On the flip side, we have Docker self-hosting. If you want to unlock Hero mode and save yourself potentially hundreds of dollars a month, self-hosting gives you complete infrastructure control. No artificial serverless limits whatsoever. But, and this is a big but, it definitely requires some solid DevOps knowledge to set up and maintain.
If you do decide to go the Docker route, you absolutely must use a multi-stage Docker file. Next.js projects can get exceptionally heavy, mostly because of that massive node_modules folder. But by configuring your next.config.js file to use standalone output mode, you're telling Next.js to trace your code and output only the exact files needed to run the app in production. Notice how we split the Docker build into 3 distinct stages here? First, installing dependencies. Second, building the standalone output. And finally, creating a pure runtime stage. Implementing this multi-stage approach can magically shrink your final container size from a massive 1.5 gigabytes all the way down to an incredibly lean 200 megabytes. I mean, that is just an absolute game changer for your deployment speeds and hosting costs.
Actually, wait, before you deploy, here is a crucial warning straight from the deployment trenches. In standalone mode, Next.js does not automatically copy your public folder or your .next/static folder into that final build directory. If you forget to manually add a copy step for these two folders in your Docker file, your app will technically deploy, but every single CSS file, image, and client-side JavaScript file will return a 404 error. Your beautiful app will just look completely broken to the user. So always remember those manual copy steps. And there you have it. You now hold the keys to the entire Next.js ecosystem. You understand exactly why it's better than standard React. You know how to leverage server components in the app router for blazing speed. You can confidently navigate all those different data fetching strategies. You know how to organize your code for massive scale. And you even know how to deploy it cost-effectively using Docker. You have officially conquered the journey from zero to hero. So the only question I have left for you is, what incredible application are you going to build next? Thanks for hanging out with me on this explainer, and happy coding.